Aotearoa, and welcome to Wednesday's Economy Watch, where we follow the economic events and trends that affect Aotearoa. I'm David Chaston, and this is the international edition from interest.co.nz. And today we lead with news. Oil prices are still rising as the two sides dig in the Persian Gulf, with no obvious off-ramp for this toxic situation. And hot on the heels of what has been seen as a humiliation of the US in the Middle East, Trump is heading to Beijing, where the Chinese are waiting to attempt to get the US separated from Taiwan. Their chances seem better because China seems much less reliant on the Edwin-looking US. But first, the overnight dairy pulse auction brought little change in prices from last week's full auction event. In the US, the April CPI inflation rose slightly more than expected, coming in at 3.8% from year-ago levels and a three-year high. Trump's war pushed fuel costs up 17.9%. But it is pushing non-fuel costs up too, with core inflation its highest in 7 months. Electricity prices are up 6.1%. The weekly ADP Pulse monitoring reports that the private sector added 33,000 jobs in the last week of April, keeping up the pace it's reported for the prior 5 weeks. And new monitoring shows it's not a good time to be young in the US. And the NFIB Small Business Optimism Index was little change in April and near its 11-month low. Analysts had expected a small improvement, but it was not to be, with the survey respondents concerned about rising inflation and affordability stress on their customers. Overall US household debt was basically steady in the first quarter of 2026, according to the latest update, but their federal government debt is increasing in cost and at a faster pace. The overnight auction for their 10-year bonds came in at 4.41% median yield, up from 4.23% at the prior equivalent event 1 month ago. And the May USDA World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimate report exposes the risks to American agriculture from creeping changes to their climate. They now concede that the US wheat crop will be sharply lower this coming season. Reductions from the EU, Argentina and Australia are being forecast too. Corn production is likely to be lower as well, although that is off this year's record harvests. All of this pressure probably means there'll be no US Fed rate cuts for the foreseeable future. If there are any movements, rises are more likely. Across the Pacific, Japanese household spending turned worryingly lower in March as inflation started to bite and their households turned risk-averse. They're saving more. Household spending there fell 2.9% in March, much more than the 1.8% drop in February, and below the expected 1.3% retreat. This is the fourth straight decrease and the largest. India's CPI inflation rate inched up to 3.5% in April from March's 3.4%, not the big rise to 3.8% that was anticipated by market watchers. In Germany, their ZEW indicator of economic sentiment was expected to get more negative in May than in April, but in fact it got less negative, which was a market surprise. Economic expectations are brightening there, they say. In Australia, they released a fairly ambitious budget overnight, doing more needed reform than anticipated, but it is still a budget in deficit, even if less so. With some unusual bravery, they're tackling stubborn policy areas that will no doubt have to use some political capital to do so. Redistribution pain will bring howls from the usual suspects at the top end of the wealth spectrum. They've been aided by a stronger than expected starting point from tax flows from commodities and good corporate health. But accelerating cost pressures are squeezing margins and demand is cooling, with the latest NAB monthly business survey signalling a tougher operating environment for Australian businesses. This April survey shows purchase cost growth lifted sharply to 4.5% in April, outpacing product price growth at 1.8%. Business conditions fell while confidence rose marginally, but is still deeply negative. In fact, it's worse since the pandemic. Those surveyed reported that future orders fell further in April, to be down sharply since February and giving up all the gradual gains achieved over the past year. Only mining orders rose, and to be fair, these were outsized gains in that sector. Later today, we expect to get the Westpac Consumer Sentiment Survey results. The US Treasury 10-year yield is now just on 4.47%, up another 6 basis points from this time yesterday. And the price of gold will start today down $44 at $4,678 an ounce. Silver's down 50 cents at just under $85 an ounce. American oil prices are up another $3 at just over $101.50 a barrel, while the international Brent price is now just over $107.50 a barrel, also up $3. And the Kiwi dollar is down 30 basis points from yesterday at 59.4 US cents. Against the Aussie, we're up 10 basis points at 82.3 Australian cents. Against the euro, we're unchanged at 50.7 euro cents. That all means our trade-weighted index starts today at just over 62.7, which is down 20 basis points from yesterday. And the Bitcoin price starts today at $80,465, down 1.9% from yesterday. Volatility over the past 24 hours has been modest, at just under plus or minus 1.5%. You can get more news affecting the economy in New Zealand from interest.co.nz. Kia ora, I'm David Chaston. We'll do this again tomorrow.